If you like these videos, please check out my full course at www.lsat.totaltestprep.net with tons of clearly explained actual LSAT questions written by someone who's mastered test and helped others master it, and an evaluation period where you only pay if you want to continue.
All right, so now we're going to go over the weekend questions. So what is the weekend question? Okay, so what do the weekend questions ask for? What does it mean to weaken an argument? How do these questions appear in the test? And how do we approach these questions? Okay, so in terms of the basic information, weekend questions ask you for the answer choice, which gives you a reason to reject the author's conclusion. So the law deals with opposing arguments, and you'll have to give reasons why the judge or the jury shouldn't accept them. Questions are always going to deal with arguments. You can't weaken an argument unless one is present. The question will generally deal with one speaker, though there might be multiple speakers. And if there are multiple speakers or multiple arguments, then the question will tell you where to focus. And the answer choices will be additional information, which can be taken to be true. So remember, it's not a question of truth. You're assuming they're true, but the question is, does it weaken? Does it give you a reason to reject the author's conclusion? In terms of the basic approach, so you fundamentally need to have a clear understanding of the argument and identify the relevant choice. So the most important thing is to identify the conclusion of the premises. You generally, once again, won't be the difficult aspect of these questions because that's not really what they're trying to test you on. So you want to look for the premise and conclusion indicators, and you want to see which one is the one that is supported, which is the premise or the information that's supported. The more difficult variations will have a more complex structure where the author responds to another perspective. And this, as I mentioned, is something that is very common for these on this test as a way of them making the arguments more difficult. And basically, you want to evaluate the relationships to get an idea of the basic structure of the argument. The different argument types will have generally different ways of being weakened, though not strictly. Likewise, you then want to go through the answer choices, looking for the one which gives you a reason to reject the conclusion. The correct choice is going to make the conclusion less likely, though this does not necessarily mean that it'll show that the premises are false or inaccurate. So correct choice may make may simply make the connection between the premises and the conclusion less likely. So the premises are still true, but they're insufficient to get you to the conclusion. So you want to consider assumptions. You want to ask yourself, how did the author get to the conclusion, etc., etc. Now, with respect to the incorrect choice will either make the conclusion more likely or it might be irrelevant. So it might actually give you reason to accept the conclusion. And if irrelevant, it'll provide information that does not influence the truth of the conclusion in any way. So these can be made tricky by introducing information which makes it seem like the conclusion is more likely, but you need to be aware of any assumptions you might be making. So is your interpretation valid, or is an opposite interpretation equally valid?